opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the participants and do not reflect the opinions or beliefs of Marshall University, Marshall University Libraries, the Department of English, the College of Liberal Arts, Marshall University Film Studies, or HerdCon. So today we're going to talk about the film Alien 3, which may have not been an out-and-out box office bomb, but it was certainly a box office disappointment and has this sordid history that was very, very dark and fascinating. And this was one of the films when we put out the call for guilty pleasure films. One of the respondents was one of our English majors here at Marshall, Abby Ramey. Is going to be our guest today. She is a senior English major at Marshall University with a minor in film studies. They serve as the coordinator of Spilling Ink. Is that correct?
Yes.
And they've written several critical papers about the Alien franchise. So this was like this is the most obvious person we could think to talk about this film with us. And I'd also say, to give a shout out to Abby, you took my
80s action
films of the 1980s class. I don't give a particular award out, but if there was an MVP in that class, most valuable, you would certainly be that. You were the glue. You kept things together. You made things fun and interesting, and you brought the level of the class up by your presence and your participation. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So, just to give a brief summary of the film Alien 3, this is the third film, obviously, but returning from LV-426, Ellen Ripley crash lands on the maximum security prison Furino, or Fury 161, where she discovers that she has unwittingly brought along an unwelcome visitor. This is a film that we're all kind of probably all had different experiences introducing or finding out about. So I kind of wanted, Abby, if you wanted to start by your experience, because I know it's something that you mentioned periodically in the action film class, because we do look at the Aliens film. And just how did you come to appreciate this film and get into it?
So I started, when I first got introduced to the Alien franchise, it was through the second film, which I think is a good place to start before moving to Alien. I knew there were multiple sequels by the time I started watching them, about 2018, 2019. So I wanted to watch them in order from, like Alien starting through Covenant. So I watched Alien 3, and I had a lot of opinions about it, but a lot of them are good. That we will talk about in the rest of this discussion. I don't know. I have it has a soft spot because it's, I don't know, like going to Alien Resurrection. I felt like that was such a disappointment as compared to Alien 3, because I felt like it was like the perfect rounding out point whenever I first watched it. I thought that Alien 3 was like the end-all be-all for the Ripley trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Before finding out the resurrection, she was resurrected. So it felt like Alien 3 was like the end of her story, and the resurrection was like, well, it felt like kind of like a cop-out. And then I know a lot of people, I heard a lot of people give a lot of critique about the beginning where Newton Hicks died. And I can definitely see where they're coming from, but also I feel like it's a bigger issue that, they killed off character and brought them back.
Yeah.
In some form.
Alien Resurrection, the search for more money. Yeah. Ian, what were some of your thoughts about?
I was curious because we don't need to get strictly into the math of it, but when I was young, Alien and Aliens were still some of the biggest movies of the previous decade. And I just don't remember a time when I didn't know about the alien.
Yeah.
Like, it was like a very prominent pop culture image. So I don't actually remember the first time I watched the movie Alien. I think I saw a lot of inappropriately like I think at the time just because VHS was new,
Yeah.
and you were getting movies into your home. I think I watched maybe Alien when I probably shouldn't have, but I just remember the image of the xenomorph being a very sort of dominant pop culture thing, and I was really curious about your experience with Alien. When do you first remember encountering the image of Alien and thinking of Alien as a movie you wanted to watch?
Probably like 2013 ish, because me and my cousin watched Aliens at like 3 o'clock in the morning, the witching hour, and everything. I was very much sleep deprived when I ever first watched it. So, like, I had that image in my mind of, these are alien bug things that, with very gross home decor.
Yeah.
This is the best way I can describe it. So, that was like my first introduction. And then many years later, in community college, I forget the exact topic we had to do for one of my English classes. But I did a paper describing the differences between like the xenomorph, the predator from John McTiernan's Predator, and then the Thing from John Carpenter's The Thing. Just kind of like like the three big alien monster films in late 70s, early to mid 1980s. So that's when I kind of like dove off deep in, like, oh my god, this is so cool! Look at this. And yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting to hear you talk about your experience with thinking about the Alien franchise as a story, like a linear story where the connections between the movies matter. Because I just, for whatever reason, I've never thought of it that way. Like, I think of the alien as like a shape, like a creature, and there's these movies, and the idea that they have anything to do with each other, I think, is like the biggest stretch. It's just, here's Sigourney Weaver, here's that thing again, and we're gonna do it again and again and again. So I think it's very interesting to think of it as, is this a story that you can relate to? Meaning, like, does Alien 3 hinge upon like your perceiving a narrative between Alien and Aliens and Alien 3? I thought that was really interesting when I was thinking about the opening of the movie, where the opening of the movie almost dares you not to.
Yeah.
Like, it takes the characters from Aliens and like just kills them in flashes of single shot flashes between who the hairdressers were in the movie. It's like casting by Bo Thompson. Here's a character you like from Aliens being killed.
Yeah, it is. Oh man, yeah. I saw this in the theater when it opened in May 1992, and it was one of these things. My family, my grandmother and my uncle owned a video store, and it was one of these things. I remember seeing the first Aliens film in '86. People took me. I was in my single digits still then. I'll say that, and saw that 2, maybe 3 times in the theater, and then eventually came to Alien because my dad's like, this is actually better, actually. And I remember it was like, would spend time with my uncle, be like, apparently 1989, they're going to have that new Alien film. And it kept going until 92. We're like, well, we want to see it. And I remember this movie magazine that talked about the sordid production history of Alien, which is insane. The fact that they got any movie made is kind of amazing. But I was coming up, I loved Aliens. I thought this movie is totally awesome. And then I was like, here's Alien 3. And I certainly think some of my past experiences and what the quality you expect in an Alien film, like an Alien film is special. It was like 79, 86, 90. There was a significant gap to where like a lot of your audience that would have, like, kids would have aged out to adults by the time they were watching it at inappropriate ages. So I was just like, is this it? And it always felt like it was a disappointment, probably greater than the Phantom Star Wars, the Phantom Menace, because I'm like, I just had wanted it to be whatever. I wanted it to be something else. And so looking back over it again, I'm kind of looking at it with like, can I try to understand what it was trying to do? Just I'm an adult now, and I teach film, so I should be able to do. But it is hard to kind of extricate like what the film could have been as opposed to what it actually was. Which
I definitely watched the movie Alien 3 probably on home video when home video release, and it left virtually no impression on me. Like, I really liked Alien and Aliens, and I have no like strong memory of like viewing this movie or caring about this movie. I think I just put it in. It disappointed me, and I rinsed it from my memory and never thought about it again. So I thought it was interesting to go back to it now. I actually was really ignorant of the production history of it.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember growing up with a big buzz about Aliens like being in production. The way like some movies are like
Yeah.
in production.
It's a whole
forever.
industry nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just remember Alien 3 coming out, like maybe seeing the trailers for it was the first time I ever knew it existed. And I actually had to make myself stop reading about the production history of the screenplay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it was just so I was like, there's no way I can digest this to talk about it cohesively. But I found myself really like thinking like, oh yeah, you made Aliens, one of the biggest movies of all time. Slam dunk premise. Let's just take that cool monster from that first movie and make a bunch of them and shoot at them with machine guns. Super easy. And then I got really like that first initial screenplay to describe. I think Rennie Harlan was attached to direct Aliens in the Space Mall. I was like,
Yeah.
where did that movie go?
It's based off of a William Gibson script. He was the famous author, cyberpunk author of Neuromancer,
Oh, yeah.
among others. So he
Yeah.
wanted to set it in a space mall.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Yeah, and then the Vincent Ward, who is given a story credit, he had this whole idea of like setting it on a wood planet with monks. And that it would have been like, it's one of the things that they should still go back to, but it's like it was like an environment with like farming and different stuff and churches. And so the aliens would adapt to whatever environment they're in. So there's almost like chameleon aliens. This would have been prohibitively expensive in the 90s, but I think it would be possible now. I don't know if anybody wants to go back to that script.
Is that where that idea comes from? The idea, like, I have this very powerful pop culture idea in my mind that the xenomorph takes the form of its host.
Yeah.
So if it's a gorilla, it becomes a gorilla alien.
There's multiple different versions of Xenomorph singing. Like, I think there's like a rhino one in one of the comics.
Yes. I've maybe seen this in Alien. Had convinced myself that this was a major point in this movie because the alien in this movie, it first infests a dog. And I guess like it was kind of dog-like. It was cool. It looked a little different than the other ones, but I was like, oh yeah, no one ever talks about it, or it never even comes up. It was just like, and then I was like, where did I get this idea that the xenomorph changes based on its host? How did that enter my mind as a child? It couldn't have been from an unproduced screenplay I never heard of until this moment.
Yeah, I do think there is the scene in AVP Alien versus Predator thing where the Predator gets impregnated, a chest burster. It has the mandibles on its side, which
Alien.
I vividly remember seeing that.
so this is kind of very memorable visual things that are happening that stick out. And yeah, I mean, I think it's an idea like, yeah, they should, and this is something like, I don't know how much you've read into like comics and other stories about how the alien adapts to whatever its host is, or
I've seen several panels of comics, and I think I've watched several videos going in depth, but I never really read any. I should definitely read the comics, but I just haven't got around to it.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of alien content in the world, which I think is an amazing thing to think about because it does start off as one singular movie in 1979, which really has a closed premise.
Yeah.
Like it is an incident that happens in space that definitively concludes the end.
you just stop there.
Yeah.
Because I know there's like several novels. I mentioned briefly, like there's an omnibus of like, instead of Ripley being the sole survivor of the Sulaco, it's Newt and Hicks. And there's like an RPG, tabletop RPG game based on it, and there's several video games. It's just like a whole conglomerate business of it.
I think there was one version of the script that had this was like the dumbest thing. Like, do you realize Sigourney Weaver is the star of Aliens? It was like they were gonna do like a third one and a fourth one, and Ripley was in a coma, and then Hicks is the hero, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, Sigourney Weaver is going to go for that, even though she is the movie star of this film, which again might have been interesting, but you're just gonna freeze the main character for a whole film. So,
Which I know, like, I think a lot of, after Resurrection, a lot of AVP movies or like a lot of alien movies really want to have that Ripley stand-in.
yes,
Which I think is really detrimental because you can't capture the same essence of Ripley. I think the closest is maybe Lex from first AVP movie, and then like Prometheus and Covenant. You know, we have Shaw and the poor other girl that I can't remember the name of. They try to be a Ripley. I think Shaw comes like in the third place of being Ripley. But they also suffer from the same fate of, oh, Ripley had the love of her life ripped away from her. Let's do the same thing with these two because character growth, and that's what happened to Ripley in that one film.
This is it was a rare example of fridging, and the term fridging, where you like usually it's done with a powerful woman is destroyed and to motivate a male character's plot, which again, tale as old as time. That would have been, I guess, that's a reverse fridging, gender swapped fridging. But yeah, in Aliens, she's like, I'm sad, and there's another guy here that I think will Dr. Clemens will see me now kind of thing. So
I was at the end, towards the climax of this film, Ripley confronts the alien in a scene, and she says, "You've been in my life so long, I can't remember anything else." And it made me, I made me think of that character. I was like, oh, all this woman does is get unfrozen and fight the alien.
Yeah.
Like her life is, I've defeated the alien, blackness. And then she wakes up and they're like, hey, the alien's back.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, god damn.
yeah.
It's the Winter Soldier of alien termination.
She literally dies, and then they resurrect her to fight aliens.
Hey, yes, we've returned you from death because you're not going to believe it. More aliens.
Yeah. And even to this day, I'm sure there's people. Brady Wine is the production company. There's people have ideas like we can bring Ripley back in some way. And Sigourney Weaver, she likes it. We're game. You know that there is this thing until she, I hope she lives along until she passes in this life. That's always going to be on the table. That there could be another Alien film with Ripley in it. So I was just kind of like thinking about just some, things that stuck out to you, things that interested you in terms of scenes and moments in this film, frustrations, all that good stuff.
Where to begin?
I was returning to this movie really fresh. I probably had not seen it since the 1990s. I've barely thought about it since the 1990s. And like when I sat down to watch it, I maybe was expecting a movie that was more boring than it was. Like I found it to be fun and interesting the whole time. I was really struck by also how good it looks. There's a great looking movie with a really solid sense of like production design that belongs to itself, even within the Alien like franchise. I think like I believe in my heart every object in this movie is gray. Like there's nothing with any color in the entire movie except for the lighting, which is all like amber, red, and yellow and orange and like warm color lighting on these gray surfaces to give it like visual variety. It has really strong look. Maybe in my mind I'd built the story that this is a very young David Fincher who was very in over his head on an expensive production, but I didn't think that felt like the case at all. Like these scenes are really well constructed. So I was like, oh, it's just a bad screenplay, I think. Like the story is not that good.
After all the drafts and all the established screenwriters that went on to much greater success, they still couldn't get a story.
Oh yeah, even the performances are really wonderful.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, I just think that the story's no good. Yeah. What did you think? What do you like about Alien 3?
Like I really like the going off the aesthetics of it. I feel like each movie is like talk about like continuity between each film. Like each film has its own aesthetic of different aesthetical things of like a haunted house. So we got like a haunted house in space, and then we got a haunted house on the moon, and then we got like a haunted house in a monk thing. I don't know. I think one of my favorite bits of the movie is just going back to like the xenomorph itself. I don't know, like there's two different versions of like the in the theatrical cut it's the dog, which I'm like so sad by. I don't know, like it should be on the this is the dog die website. I feel like
Yes, immediately in an awful fashion.
And then the ox as well, which is in Simlica, which I feel like nobody really people talk about, but I don't feel like people like really talk about because I feel like
In the
it's-
assembly cut, does the alien emerge from an ox
yeah, it's like a
instead of the dog?
yes.
What happens to the dog?
There's
Nothing.
no dog.
Yeah, there's
There's just no dog
They
in the
would
assembly cut.
well, they would have eaten the dog on
Yeah.
that planet. So
Yeah, because I think like from what I understood in the assembly cut, it's a dead ox. That's why I kind of got from it because they were going to use it for like food and everything, which is, I thought was really interesting because usually the xenomorphs go after live people, because I thought it was really interesting that it would go after something dead. I just thought that would be really interesting because like with the logistics between alien breathing in that sense. I don't know, like that's one piece of like interesting
Yeah,
lore bias of like I don't know.
it's definitely, I think, the aesthetic, the general aesthetics of alien films in the and I think too, like Alien Romulus certainly is this kind of truckers in space lived in universe kind of place. Like everything is scuffed up and grimy, and certainly Alien 3 proudly continues that tradition. It is a rundown, like nothing works, and it is just everyone is so dirty in this film. They must, like, I assume they take showers, but then they're like, all right, put the mud and the dirt on each actor and get them ready for the next day.
I
I
did think the high concept of the script was really like so simple. Alien in a prison. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sounds cool. Like it fits into that haunted house theme. Like it's haunted a spaceship. It's haunted like a battle station. Now what if it haunted a prison? That'd be like a cool idea.
With kind of monk-like people.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
it.
And I thought the prisoners were interesting. There's a lot about this movie that's so good. I can't figure out why it doesn't all come together. Well, actually, yes.
I really like the apocalyptic Christian fundamentalists. like the they have like the prisoners were like so interesting, especially with the ideology that they each had, and like I really like how they brought in like a little bit of the like medievalness of Christianity with I forget his name immediately. Goylik was like compared it to like a dragon, which it's just I really like some of the names they give the different xenomorphs, like Cain's son, the dragon, and it really. I don't know. I keep saying I don't know, but it's just like I don't know the interesting implications between like Christian fundamentalists, apocalyptic Christian fundamentalists, and using like dragons and in ideology and imagery.
I think too it's interesting because we've got, like, assuming you have watched the other Alien films, that generally what an alien will look like, and part of it is like how do other characters react to the thing that we know all about, and that very much the Golic character, seeing it as a dragon, seen as almost kind of this religious thing in a way, is interesting. And I think after we know the alien, we have our opinions, and now we're seeing other people's perspective on this creature, other characters' perspective on it.
Yeah. You are a big fan of like the alien lore.
Yes.
Like I think that's such an interesting part of kind of like the alien as a persistent pop culture idea is so much of it is about exploring, developing, or discovering the biology of the alien, which I think is so great because I think that's a great testament to the original Alien movie, which has the big thematic idea of you cannot understand nature in totality. Like if you think that you are mastering nature, you are not, and you will encounter unknowable things, and if you think you have control, you do not. There will be chaos. That's like a big thematic idea in that first Alien movie, and I just think it's so interesting and fun that main thing that spawns is like trying to make up things about how the aliens work.
Yeah.
There's a thing at the very beginning of this movie that bugged me so much about the alien biology, and it's the method by which the crew is dispatched during the opening credits. Is there's a facehugger that hatches from an egg, and it crawls around their spaceship and takes malevolent actions against them. And like the big mystery is like, is it infecting one of them? But really, it's like almost like a slasher movie, one by one killing them. Like, here are the people you liked from that last movie. That one's dead. This one's dead, and I've destroyed the robot too.
The facehugger with a knife just.
I have remained the one lady who has to be in the movie, and then the new movie you're watching begins. But I hated that presentation of the face hugger as a thing that like thinks and takes actions. Because in the first movie, I think the great presentation of the face hugger is it doesn't hunt you and get you. Like you get it on you because you have hubris. You're like, what's this strange thing I don't know or understand? I could obviously look into it because I am in control, and then it bursts out of it, and it proves to you that nature is huge, it's unknowable, it is dangerous to you, and it operates on a scale that has nothing to do with your mind or body. And then like turning the face hugger into this thing that's like crawling around the spaceship. I didn't like. Do you like these explorations of the alien biologies?
I really do. I'm reminded of like the royal facehugger a bit, which is like it has the royal facehugger is supposed to have like the alien queen inside it, which I think I forget if this is this movie or the next movie, but like is the alien in Ripley's chest is the queen, but also like I think in lore, if a facehugger doesn't immediately find somebody, it just kind of shrivels up and dies, which I'm glad that they explored that in this movie. Now that you're bringing it up, but like it's one of those things like there's going back to like the kind of discontinuity and also continuity between the films, like which film do we build up, like which lore pieces are canon now within each film. Because I know in the original Alien, there's a director's cut where the alien takes Dallas and Brett and like makes them into the eggs that would go on affecting other people, which is, since Aliens is not canon anymore. And then we go to, well, what about the facehuggers? And it's like, well, you know, if they don't find anything, they just kind of shrivel up and die, which is real loosey-goosey in a lot of the other films.
Yeah, it seems extraordinarily convenient. Convenient, whatever the script writers and the producers and the director and the stars want to do at the time. What is expedient? I mean, I do think it is that a film like the Alien series is a perfect hybrid genre of science fiction and horror. In that, in a science fiction film, you're generally rewarded for being curious. You know, I want to understand this other species. I want to understand this. You know, I'm going to go through the Stargate kind of thing.
Yeah, our curiosity makes us great.
Yeah, and a horror film is like you celebrate the cautious. You celebrate the cautious person, the person who doesn't stick their face in front of an egg hatching. So you know, it's that balance, and the curious ones are typically the characters that die off.
Yeah,
and I think with like alien lore, it seems like with the eggs, they just die. The face huggers, they just die. It's like this is a species that thinks in terms of playing the percentages. Like, we'll just make a lot of eggs. They're not all. We're going to get like a 10% catch rate or whatever. You know, that there's a certain kind of logic that I find more interesting than, I don't know. So there's all these different ways you can read the Alien depending on the film.
Yeah, because the Alien, the kind of nest that Kane discovers, there's like hundreds, if not thousands, of eggs that don't open up until like you get close to them. There's even like a laser.
Yeah,
or
this is a
something
little activated.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, it just seems like there's a lot that's implied, but I also think like it's very much there's all this what the alien represents, all of these anxieties of something hugging to your face and making something pop out, and all the awful things that the aliens do. That's the interesting thing, and not to overcomplicate.
I came to think while I was watching this movie, because one question I had in this movie is like, why is this such like? I mean, there was an Alien film this summer, or over the winter,
Last fall,
the winter. Like, and why does this thing stay so persistent in pop culture? And I think hearing you talk about like the lure of the Alien story, I think that the thing about this movie is like so much of it is mysterious and crouched in mystery, but also like there's all these separate discrete alien stories where all these things are very slightly different.
Yeah.
It wants to engage your pattern making brain into like, I can build a separate fan based lore structure where this creature makes sense. And the story is literally telling you you can't know about this creature.
Yeah.
It's unknowable to you. And you're like, no, I can do it. And then I can collect that information in a Reddit forum. And then I will contain it and it will all make sense. And I will know what a facehugger is and what a facehugger does and how it all works. And I think that's like so engaging about these alien movies is like the movie challenges you. It says the universe is unknowable, and you say, I think I can do
I can find the
it.
pattern.
I think I'm built different.
Which like with the chest burster, I think a lot of the pattern goes out the window because in like the first 3 alien movies, it's like the chest burster takes several hours to emerge. Especially like this one, I think there's between really getting out of the cryopod and like at the end is like at least 6 to 12 hours. I want to like say just throw out a number, and then I think with other films we lose that little bit of
That's
lore.
what I thought a lot during this movie. Is I was like, what's the alien's biology? It is based around dramatic convenience.
Yes.
When it's gonna pop out.
Because I kind of mentioned like an alien Romulus Navarro. Like the facehugger gets on Navarro, and then within the hour it kind of spurts out. So it's just like a matter of convenience. Where after a certain point, you kind of like you're expecting the alien to kind of pop out sometime or another, whenever that is. So it maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours in movie time, maybe forever. In the movie, 2 hours.
There's that, and then there's how quickly it grows, because you never see like an alien like snacking on something or bulking up or getting bigger. They're just like, and I think it was something you pointed out in some of your the aliens are fully formed in Alien. They're just little xenomorphs, and they're not the little chest bursters. But there is some like there's this little one that's like in Alien, and then it's like a 7-foot tall guy in a costume in the first Alien film. Like, what happened? And that, I think, that interestingly puts the mystery into it. But when everybody's being so willy-nilly about how something gets so big so fast, and you're like, that makes that kind of affects your suspension of disbelief when you're watching these films. If it's just all, again, whatever's plot expedient.
Yeah, because I know in like other forms, like at least like between like these films, like the chest burster, depending on how long it was implanted, it has like little arms or anything, like developmental of the arms. Because in the first one, it doesn't have like as it's just an eel like creature thing that kind of pops out, as opposed to in this movie where it's like literally like an alien, like a xenomorph that's already popped out. But in other things, like you can kind of see like the 2 little arms, like kind of in between stage, kind of like a little creepy, like off of Spaceballs where John Hurt did a cameo, and it's just like it has the little arms.
It's fully developed to do a song and dance number and walk off the stage at the diner. Yes, you were saying that, I was like, oh no, the Spaceballs. So yeah, it is kind of this, and it's like there's obviously like on a certain level, like it's a movie. And they're doing it, what is going to be most emotionally effective at a particular plot point. But it does seem like a little bit so contrived. When does the alien pop out of any particular person? It seems like with Ripley, she's getting, she's got Clemens's special cocktail, which I always thought it was really cool. Like, oh, they still have, the Swiss still make medical equipment in the future that looks amazingly like medical equipment in the 90s.
Funny how that happens.
Huh?
Funny how that happens. Medical equipment, 200-300 years looks like stuff from the 90s.
Yeah, it is one of those things. Like, I guess that grounds it, but also every other medical equipment thing I saw in Alien film was at least had the veneer of looking advanced. So it was just maybe like, we've already spent too much money. Here's a syringe. But he's got the concoction that keeps her going, or she's fighting it, or maybe knowing that you have an alien inside you will keep it from coming out. I don't know. So again, it's frustrating. It's like, I understand filmmakers have to tell the story and what's effective, but also like, I'm always like, when that should have come up by now, kind of thing.
Yeah. when I was thinking, I was also like, because I do think a big draw to an alien movie is thinking about the alien.
Yeah.
What is it? What does it do? And I do think there's a great wonder of like, what are its developmental stages? How does it get from one place to another? But when I was thinking about what does the alien do, I was like, oh, I know what the alien does. It chases people down hallways, and and then this third movie is maybe the moment where we ran out of interesting ways to do that. Like,
Yeah.
in the first one, very fantastic chases down hallways.
Sneaks up on you. You know.
And then
Go and save
aliens
some
were like,
chains.
let's take that idea and explode it. Like, how exciting can a hallway chase in a hallway be? And this one, I was just like, oh yeah, it's just running after a guy with a fisheye lens.
Yeah, yeah. I think too, this is where the xenomorph goes full slasher, because it isn't gathering them for their hive or making another hive or giving them to their queen, as we find out in Aliens. It's just and it's a
Eating
very
them. Eating them.
That was a
doing
big question I had about why does the alien kill everybody? I couldn't figure out because it wasn't like feeding, like hunting, like an
Yeah.
animal.
It would do its little. He had it. It was like it was like a lazy slasher film where the slasher had one move. It's like stabby or choppy or whatever your weapon is. So it's the fist mouth tongue, as I like to call it, that pops out, and he goes for the headshot every time. So there's lots of exploding skulls with the. I think they're pretty well done, and that's it. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm like, well, if he knows there's going to be a queen, shouldn't he make sure that there's eggs for the queen to get? So shouldn't he try to preserve them? But it seems to be not the case. So it's one of those things that, like, again, taking this film on its own, it's just a slasher that's just trying to kill every dude there to protect the birth of the queen, I suppose. But it seems very out of character for alien behavior. It seems to like get you and hide you away and make you suffer.
Yeah, because going back to Alien, with the lead scene that is no longer canon, but also still canon, I feel like it should be. I don't know. I'm a director's cut apologist about a lot of things. Everything is better in the director's cut, in my opinion. But like I think, like I said, it's very loosey goosey with the lore. I know with like the tabletop RPG, like it has everything and anything you can think of, but it's just it's like all different experiences for everybody, like what they are interested in. And this was just what whoever wrote that was the story they wanted to tell, was fast and loose and everything and anything all at once.
I thought that this movie had a strange dynamic because I thought that Alien is basically a perfect movie. It has a perfect like premise, like trapped on a relatively small spaceship with the alien. It's really small in scope in that way. Like you're trapped in the hallway with the thing the entire movie. And then Aliens, I thought, was like the perfect evolution of that premise, where it's just bigger. There's more of them. It's more motion. It's more action. It's more yelling. It's more shooting. And this one, I thought, returns to like the Alien scope, where it's all just small gray hallways. But I thought that was maybe felt wrong to me in like the continuity of like my mental continuity of the movies. I wanted this one to be
Bigger.
bigger than Aliens, which does seem almost impossible. In fact, I guess maybe that's why they never made that one in the mall.
Which, it's kind of a hybrid of the first two. And I guess in some ways they're like, the hallways are rather big, big in places, but the cast it's very emptied out. So
Yeah, really small in scope in that way too. Like where there's a small, like it's a prison planet, but by the way, there's only a few of those guys left.
yeah.
I mean, the space mall idea, I think, could be, like I know there's the Alien game tie-in, Alien Isolation, which kind of is like the space mall theme, because the whole premise of that movie, premise of that game is we have Ellen Ripley's daughter Amanda, and she is on this space station that like has the black box from the Nostromo. And it's basically a space mall of like, here's a few working Joes, which are the androids and everything. Here's the working Joes, show them off, like let's, like get people to buy these. And there's like a lot of different storefronts in them, so it kind of takes like the space mall aesthetic with being like a corporate lounge of sorts, a corporate showcase.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me think about also about the if there isn't another character that runs through the Alien films, in addition to the Xenomorph, Ripley, there is the company Wayland Utani. Wayland Utani,
That is like that's I think the master stroke of language.
the real villain in
Yeah.
the
But-
films.
And those are like the perfect syllables for an evil corporate. That's what I always think when I hear this. I think, yeah, they really cracked the code with Wayland Utani. It sounds so
The most
sinister.
villainy name to a villain.
Except for the Chone group, which I guess is the people who actually mine the spice and do the Chone
Oh.
group. But yeah, Wayland Utani is like the best evil corporation name. So it's kind of like this, and it's one of these things when you're like a kid, this like flies right over you, and then it becomes like this becomes a very major point of interest for me now as an adult. Like, oh yeah, this is the this is the evil corporation, and how evil are they? Well, they are very, very bad, and they do awful things, and they exploit everyone in any possible way. So much like other, say, I'm not going to say any other corporations, but they're very much embody corporate culture and exploitation. So, did y'all have any thoughts about everyone's favorite evil sci-fi space corporation?
They're always prevalent, and like I said, my observations. Ripley is that bitch to Weyland Yutani, and Weyland Yutani is that bitch to everybody. Just giving everybody the middle finger, and they always know anything about the xenomorph. If there's a xenomorph on any planet they know about, they're gonna come get it, send people out. They really don't give a crap about like who gets in their way.
I do think it's one of the most relatable ideas in this film and all those films is like if you encountered an alien species, it would be the most valuable thing to humanity. And I do think about like who's like making that decision and what motivation is to it. There's nothing that would change everybody's life on this planet than like definitive proof, knowledge, or possession of a life form from off the earth. And like makes sense. Like if you'd want that to be your intellectual property. Like we own the only other thing in the universe, and we are in control of it. And like yes, of course you would want it, but then like who's making that decision, and how expendable are you, the person who's encountering it? Where you're like, I'm going to blow this thing up, and then your boss is like, I don't care if it eats you. I wouldn't. That doesn't mean anything to me. You are valueless.
Everyone is expendable.
It's the most valuable thing in the universe. You should let it eat you. I would be glad if it did.
It would be great for the company if you would let this monster eat you.
If it eating you made it survive long enough for me to get there and get it, that's what I want to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
That is Alien 3 in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, I think too the integrated monopolies and conglomerates is just how Weyland Yutani has its fingers in everything. We certainly see that in the more recent Alien Romulus film. It's a mining planet, and people are stuck there, and like life sucks. It's like something akin to working a company town in central Appalachia, coal mine town. And there, one of the little details that I noticed in the film was there's a scene about Ripley not liking the cornbread in Aliens, and when she goes to eat at the with the prisoners, she's got this square of what looks like cornbread or cake or something. I guess it's some sort of nutrient filled thing. So I think Weyland Yutani also does the food, and the fact that they have prisoners doing a hard labor making stuff for them, and it's just like they've got their little fingers and everything, and everything. They want to make a profit on everything, including human beings. I mean, it is forced labor for these prisoners to do. You know, it's one thing to like if they're actually like helping a planet in the work they're doing, but they were doing, you know, lead works and making stuff for them to make a profit, which they didn't have to pay them. So
Because it's kind of the through message of Weyland Yutani wanting the xenomorph for the bioweapons division, which in one aspect I'm really glad we got to see that with the resurrection, but also is like, you know, again, flip side of that, Ripley goes back, which, yeah. But it's really the through message, because even from the first movie, you know, Ripley remarks, you know, they want this for the bioweapons division. I know exactly what those dudes are gonna do. And as we keep going on, it's just like, yeah, they're getting one step closer with each movie before Resurrection kind of pops out. And with this movie, like they kind of swoop in, trying to be like the savior complex. Like I am, like I'm what keeps everything together. I'm the glue. They're like that hammer that kind of comes down on everybody.
From like, I think one of the I talked about how like I believe that like one of the things about that makes Aliens so like persistent and enjoyable is like the way there's all this big mystery about it. And you're trying to piece together how the world, even how the world works. And I think there's this great kind of like vagary about how like the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. What's the scale of it?
Yeah.
They have to span multiple solar systems.
Yeah.
And then like so they have this reach that's like unimaginably wide. They have like a planet that just like mines lead full of prisoners, but they also like shipping all over every possible conceivable solar system to like do what or accomplish what, build and sell things.
Building better worlds.
Yeah.
And they are the company that builds terraforming machines to terraform them, because clearly these are not Earth-like planets. These are barely inhabitable planets that they've made habitable for their business endeavors.
I guess that's with LV-426. It was like methane and like all this like other gases that was completely uninhabitable. I had to put on like the spacesuits in order to like go out. And next movie is just like, oh yeah, people been there 50 years. It's good, breathable.
People vacation there.
Yeah, it's got a bar in there.
And when you travel in the Alien universe, you are in stasis, but you're going between solar systems. So how long are you in stasis for decades? Like, and then you wake up and you start doing your job, like for the seemingly eternal corporation. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like I'm on a 3-year contract with Weyland-Yutani. It's like I'm in stasis for an unknown period of time. When I awake, I will mine here for a while and then go back to sleep and take it home.
Yeah.
This was a question when me and my friends were playing like the TTRPG of this. Like, how long is a parsec and how long does it take to travel that parsec? And it's an ungodly amount of time. We spent like at least 3 hours just going like trying to figure out what a parsec is, and it's not pleasant. But
It's 3.5 light years, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's a long long distance. And what was I gonna? I also think I had a good insight here, and it suddenly blanked. Never mind. If I can think of like the other Weyland-Yutani.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So one thing is that clearly the people making these decisions of like, we got to go get that xenomorph, have not had any firsthand experience with said xenomorph. They haven't like tried to wrangle a xenomorph. They're like someone that sees something on a spreadsheet and says, this is where we can make money. Get that. Like, they have no practical. They're like someone telling teachers what to do who have never taught before, something to tell miners who've never mined before, or any sort of profession where you need to like get experience in that thing. They have no idea what those things are.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
I think like Burke, not to interrupt, but I think that's like the closest character that I can imagine that it's come close to that is like Burke
Yeah.
from Aliens, of like realizing like, oh shit kind of moment.
Yeah, like that feeling, that coldness of someone you don't know, who you never even see in the movie,
Yeah.
deciding, oh, it's fine if you all die. Like, that's worth it. Yeah.
Crew expendable.
There's a bonus. We don't care. It's worth it. But you're the thing we're willing to sacrifice for that. So
But like priority one, bring back life form. All other priorities are setting.
I think too, maybe to talk. I think one of the things in alien films, as what you would say in like a typical action film, is I think we kind of expect a little bit better acting in this than say your usual sci-fi fare. And I was kind of interested in notes that you'd kind of mentioned about performance and things like that. So what were kind of thoughts about the acting and the particular performances that people give in this film?
Sigourney Weaver's is probably the best, of course, but I feel like the prisoners, like they're all very organic, but also I feel like slightly lackluster, I think. But I feel like as to kind of like the authenticness of all of them being awkward around women in this kind of situation that they are in. I think like my favorites were like as we mentioned, like our kind of observations, Charles Dance and then Charles Dance. Like they are like these, besides Ripley, like they are like the absolute stars of the show.
Oh, yeah. I thought Charles S. Dunn was so good in this movie. Like, really, like, a great performer. You really believe him. And I think sometimes, like, I mean, like, I think if you're just reading the words that he's saying, you might go, "Oh, this is corny," but like you really
Yeah.
buy it from him.
I mean, he was actually in jail. He had committed violent crimes early in his life and had gotten into a kind of theater prison program or helped to start a theater prison. He really cleaned his life up. And when he got out, he started acting and he ended up getting in with August Wilson. I believe he was the one of the actors in the lead production of The Piano Lesson. And so he had worked, he worked with August Wilson, greatest American playwright, uh, just in terms of quality from play to play. And he had worked with him, and so he had this kind of distinguished stage career, which I think really comes through in this film because when he needs to go big, boy, he can go big. And also at the same time, I think when he can do the quiet stuff too, because sometimes stage actors are just like they don't know the difference between big and small, and he goes big, and then there are moments when he's quieter, and I think it's a very showy performance, and I think he does a really good job in it. So
Yeah.
I think my favorite scene with Charles II is like near towards the end where Ripley is like, I want you to kill me. I think you're the only person I trust. And then he's like, oh no, we're going all the way. Like it's you, us, or nothing. So that's kind of like the point in the movie where it's just like, oh, you good. I like you.
it's also like it's literally like he's like, this isn't all about you, Ripley. I have wants and desires too, and if you could help us kill the thing that's killed all my friends, I'm cool with that. But we need you. So it is this moment where a character is kind of resigned to death. And it's like, nope, you still got some more work to do. That alien's not going to come out just yet. And you mentioned also Charles Dance, who I'm a super big fan of. Thoughts about Dance? He's certainly he's also a stage actor, but he does the quieter stuff. Most of that role is a quiet role, I think.
Which I think it really fits with his character of being like the doctor who has, he mentions in the movie like he had, accidentally killed several patients, and you could tell like at least with this performance, I could tell like he really like felt bad about doing that. He really had like regrets, and so they're playing that really quiet against all the prisoners who are like very loud, and as in comparison, like I really like that kind of subtle, like smaller acting that Dance did.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I know, like, you are a fan of Charles Dance, you said.
Yes.
I don't think I can place him, but he did so good in this movie.
He plays Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones. I don't know if you've
Oh,
seen him.
okay,
There we go.
yeah. Duh, that's that same guy.
That guy that commands every scene that he's in the film,
yeah.
and dies on the toilet.
Yeah.
And he was the villain in The Golden Child. He was the villain in The Last Action.
Yeah.
He gets a lot of villain roles, which I always want to let's put him in a nice romantic comedy sometime. I'm sure he would do pretty good.
He kind of was in a romantic comedy in this movie. In
Yeah,
Aliens.
yeah, that's true. And I think really some of this feeds back into Sigourney Weaver, who I think it's one of these things that's just unfortunate. Just the way Hollywood goes, as you get older, you get pushed into supporting roles. But I just look at Sigourney Weaver, and she's a wonderful actress, but she is so good at playing off other actors. Going back to Alien, and particularly with this character that is her character, this is however she feels about when she passes this mortal coil. It'd be like Eleanor Ripley from Alien, has passed. And I think with like the characters of Newt and Hicks in Aliens, and then with Clemens, who I think they really have a really good chemistry. There's this kind of we're old and resigned, and we don't want to say too much, but we're clearly both horny. And then even with Dylan, and there's a kind of understanding, and even was the character's name? He was 85, the poor character who was named that Aaron. There's just some really nice interactions, and she's clearly a movie star that's like, you are acting. We're doing this scene together. I'm not here to blow you off the stage or show off. We're gonna do a scene together, and it's gonna work. However, whatever lines we have to say, and I think she really does that, and I think that's something that is underappreciated. And sometimes you have movie stars, and this is her, like, it's like, if we don't want to do it, Sigourney Weaver is going to say, we're not going to do this in this film. And she's there to work with the actors.
Because I think in like this film and especially the next one, she had like I don't want to say like set requirements, but she had like this thing, like certain things that she wanted to do, including fucking Alien, which she did in Resurrection, whatever way you want to say that. But like like Sigourney Weaver in like Ghostbusters and Krellis in the Mist, she's like a really fantastic actress who is able to like embody the role and plus make other actors feel comfortable and just as believable.
Yeah.
When I watch Alien, I always get the impression like you're watching a young woman discover that she's a movie star.
Yeah.
Like you're watching her realize, oh, I can hold the stage, and then I can hold this screen, and I can hold this movie together. And like maybe I didn't know I could do that when they hired me, but like I'm doing it.
Yeah, watching like sorry to interrupt again, but like watching it like from the beginning of her not being the main character and then watching her become the main character at the end of Alien is like really fantastic character building, both on her part and the part of Ridley.
And in Alien 3, when I watched it, I was like, oh, no, movie star showed up for this movie. Like,
Yeah.
this is a person who's in full command of, like, who not only, like who the character is and how to be a performer, but, like, my face on the poster is going to move tickets. Like, this is, like, a big-time movie star in 1993.
Yeah, even with no hair on my head, people are going to...
Oh, what a great look,
Yeah.
right?
And, I mean, and just she was also a stage, done mostly stage before she got cast in Alien. And she's good with the close-up. She's good with the wider shots. She's someone, in terms of an action hero you believe can do the things. And also, I think it's something I've seen a couple of people on social media post it. She's currently doing a version of Shakespeare in London of The Tempest, where she plays Prospero. So I'm sure that's just like, I'm Shakespeare on the stage. So she's a versatile performer. I always liked her. I always liked her when I was a kid, and I think she's just really fantastic. And I'm sure she's got an ego, but she's not like, I want to destroy everybody on the cast and crew. It's that she's very...
I want to do well.
Yeah.
I hope to do well.
I'm a very good partner. And I think she does just a really strong job with that in this film.
I'm very curious about your thoughts on Ellen Ripley in this movie, which I think we've talked about very briefly, but I'd like to talk about some more. One thing I discovered when I was watching this movie is I just don't even believe in the Alien continuity. Like, I don't believe it exists. I don't believe there is such a thing as continuity between Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3. And the idea that it's telling one story is, like, not true. It's just, I can't believe when I was
They all
watching
have
this
these
movie.
director cuts
But
that undermine it.
When you talk about the alien lore, you exist in that world where there's like the meta story of like you are stitching together an alternate universe where all of this makes sense.
Yeah, that's how I kind of see the movies.
Yeah. How do you feel about Ellen Ripley in this movie specifically? Like you talked about it very briefly at the start of this, but I thought what you had to say was very interesting.
Like in this film, I feel like she's a very tragic figure, and I feel like this is like the good end to her story, where everything is went through aliens, and again this movie, like this is like the kind of like capping off point. That Resurrection kind of like falters and like falls into itself. But Ellen Ripley in this one, she is like, I'm trying to think of a good comparison of her, like kind of compare her to. But this is like the woman who just like doesn't give a shit anymore, is like, I just, like throw everything out the window because I like screw everybody else. Like, I just want to go home. God. But I really like Ripley's character and like how she's developed from somebody who is very illogical from Alien and coming to this one where she's like, I don't know how to make you believe because I don't even believe anymore. Like kind of aesthetic or like whatever.
Yeah, for me, like I said, I think earlier that this movie left no impression on me in the 1990s. But that is kind of a lie because I do very vividly remember every detail of the ending of this movie.
Yeah.
And I think this movie has such a strong ending. And that final image of Ripley gives birth to the alien queen. She chooses that she's going to destroy herself and the alien together. She goes back off the platform, falling into the
Jesus
volcano.
style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And the alien comes out of her and she holds it and cradles it
Like a mother.
and also contains it until they burn
fire.
up forever.
Yeah.
And that's a cool, powerful image.
Yeah, which I kind of compared to like the first images we like sea of Ripley from the first movie of like them in the like cryopods opening for the first time, like where it's just like all white, very sterile compared to the last image, which was just like gritty and grody and like disgusting and everything's happening all at once. Very, very cluttered kind of thing.
But I just kind of hated what they did to Ripley in this
Yeah.
movie. Because in Alien, Ripley is the person who survives the alien.
Yeah.
She encounters the unknowable thing, but she also like survives it and she expels it into the blackness of space.
Blows it out of the airlock.
And she lives to go to sleep, and then we find out, wake up, and fight hundreds of them.
Blow out of the airlock again.
And then in the story of Aliens, it's this woman who is who like knows more than everybody. She knows, she's like, oh, you guys don't even know what this thing is.
It's like a Cassandra situation. Nobody believes her.
Yeah.
You know.
And then she again battles the aliens and the evil corporation. But in Aliens, she gets something out of it. Like she discovers Newt and that she can grow as a person and invite this other person into her life whom she loves. And then that's like a great ending for her. Like she stands up to the alien queen, get your hands off her, you bitch. Is that what she says in that movie? And
We never have to make another Aliens after that one if we wanted to.
yeah, and that's like a great ending for that character. And in this movie, it opens by just stripping all that away from her for what feels like phony reasons. Like,
Yeah.
it is an interesting story for her to lose everything from Aliens, but they don't tell you that story. They're just like,
Here it is.
yeah, we're just forget all that stuff.
Sad.
And then then at the end of the movie, like, she can't escape, and that's her realization is, oh. Like, essentially, she died in the first movie. Like, she thought she beat the alien in the first movie, and she
Yeah.
goes to sleep. And then she lives this life where she goes to sleep, she wakes up, there's more aliens. She goes to sleep, she wakes up, there's more aliens. And then she just dies.
And then they resurrect
and then
her,
she
and
comes back,
you've
like,
got
and
some
they're
more
like, "You're not gonna believe
aliens to
it."
deal with.
Which I think I like the ending of like her just dying and like that being the end of her story compared to like her being alive again, because I feel like her coming back kind of like is the trope. It's become a trope at that point of like bringing Ripley back continually.
I guess her escaping at the end of Alien 3 might feel really, truly repetitive. Like, she escapes in 1, she escapes in 2, she escapes in 3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the last time she can, at that point, at least we thought, could definitively defeat the company she works for or used to work for.
And that is ultimately who she defeats in this movie. She wants to destroy the alien, not because she hates the alien, because she's terrified of the evil corporation she works for.
Yeah, and what they might do.
Yeah, because I think like her and the alien like are at least she comes to terms with the alien. Is kind of like I'm like reminded of the scene where Fincher like went behind the producers back and like shining away, or for like the right after Clemens died, of like the xenomorph cornering her in like the medical wing. I think at that point like they were on the same level of, like, screw everybody else. Like, even if they don't understand you, I understand you kind of way. So she herself becomes like the alien.
It's an interesting reversal from Alien versus Predator, where the human characters figure out, because the Predator is oppressing in Alien versus Predator, which I have a soft spot for. The alien is oppressing both the xenomorphs and humans. So it's like this whole post-colonial reading you could give of it. And then the humans are like, we can reason with the Predator who has oppressed us, but we can't reason with the xenomorph. So we're going to side with that. Whereas here in the third one, which I guess is the more radical one, she sides with what cannot be reasoned with.
Yeah.
And her, primal nature, and I guess the inevitability of nature and the reality that she is going to die.
Yeah, and I guess too is like the corporation is this figure of pure reason, literally like lines on a balance sheet. Yeah, that's interesting though. Yeah, she
finally gets to defeat them. And I think too, one of the things I noticed, because like I often ask myself, like, why is she not telling, like, doesn't she wake up like there are aliens everywhere, and then that would really help the plot out. But I kind of think at some point she is so used to not trusting people that she is a little wary of trusting people. And it's something in the assembly cut version. There is a longer scene between Superintendent Andrews and Dr. Clemens about, what has she said? So it's implied that he is at least willing to give knowledge away about what she knows, because it's disrupting the orderly nature of it. So I think she's right. I mean, also, like, she's a woman surrounded by men, so she's right to be a little suspicious of everybody in varying degrees. and I think the film is like, what is the underlying implicit themes of the film? It is about trust. And
Because going back to the first movie, like she told everybody, like, don't bring it into quarantine, we're gonna kill us all. And then Rash is like, oh, screw that, no.
the rules
kill
don't
everybody.
apply to us.
Yeah.
And they're, your medical guy is an android who is like has programming that makes him a misogynist and a violent person. And yeah, and that so much of it is that she's kind of like, I can't control anyone trusting me. Because that was one thing when Bishop 2 shows up, or Michael Bishop, he's like, you can trust me. Look, I'm a friendly face. And she's like, I really can't. I can only trust myself to do what's right. And in the end, she does what's right. And that would have been a fine ending to this series,
Yeah.
like the other two films. And then we got Alien Resurrection. So, any other thoughts, reflections, anything that y'all have?
I feel like the CGI in this movie, I feel like
Oh, yeah,
we
yeah,
got
yeah.
a lot of discrepancies between like the production value of the movie. And this movie reminds me a lot of like 2011's The Thing, where they wasted a lot of money on these practical effects, and then the production company was like, actually, we can go to CGI, and then the CGI wasn't up to par just because like they had wasted so much money on like the practical effects already.
Yeah, that CGI does not look good in this movie.
No,
Yeah.
But
not at all.
I chose to view it through the lens of nostalgia. Like, it was very experimental, and I think this is before Jurassic Park.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a year
91.
before.
So to have these CGI shots in it was really experimental, and I think maybe untalked about. Like, we always talk about Jurassic Park as this great moment where CGI comes to fruition. Where like, no, this had creature CGI in it like a year before, right?
Yeah.
And
This is in between Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which has great special effects,
Yeah.
and yeah, Jurassic Park in 91 and 93. So it's that 92, that in between year.
I think they were using the CGI very thoughtfully in that they didn't forego. They have an amazing puppet. The puppet in this movie looks
Yeah.
outstanding, and the shots of the creature that are the puppet shots in this movie are beautiful and like alluring and scary, just like they should be in an alien movie. And I thought the mix of CGI was just like they were trying to push it beyond the puppetry in a way that I was just like, yeah, that's what 1993 was like. We were trying to figure it out.
And I think, I hate the CGI in it, and I think in the first two, and I think this is an Alien film. Seems to be a film where like we're going to have some new and innovative special effects. Like that's something you expect. Like I feel that way with a Star Wars movie, however good or bad it is. But like the prequel's like, you've never seen this before in a film. And so there's that sense of at least technological innovation. And there really isn't that kind of, I think it's something, Ian, you said about, well, they did all the cool things with aliens in the first two films. But in those films, I think there's deliberate hiding of the alien to useful effect. And in this film, I feel like they're deliberately hiding the alien because they don't want to show it off.
Yeah.
And that's a different mindset, and it comes across in a different way.
They should have got James Cameron back, because James Cameron, he makes a pen every time he touches a movie. He could look at something and just pen comes into like existence. So like I think like Jurassic Park, like the way they use kind of CGI was they put it in the background or like made it like pushed it back the way you didn't see all the CGI-ness of it. And like with the Terminator 2, like the T-1000 was like liquid metal, which I feel like it smooths out a lot of the imperfections of CGI because it's like metal. It's supposed to be kind of funky to look at. So with this one, it just kind of, I don't know, for like a modern viewer, it kind of like pulls you out of it because we've seen so many cases of like good CGI or whatever that may tell for everybody. So it's just like comparing it to like the Terminator and Jurassic Park feels appropriate, but also not appropriate with the absolute shit show of Alien 3 as a whole.
yeah, it's unfair, and I think Alien films are the creative force, the director involved. It lends itself to obsessive directors, and I think you could say that about younger Ridley Scott. you could certainly say that about James Cameron. I certainly think you definitely say that about David Fincher, but David Fincher was basically coming on as a hired gun. His first major film, he'd done tons of commercials and videos, so he knew he had a good sense of things, but it was just they were locked in on a deadline and they didn't really give him the time. They ultimately took the film away from him. So the ending is quite truncated from the longer version he had. But it is a film that, like, you need somebody who's meticulous and thorough to make a film like this.
That's I think that was my big takeaway from this movie is I had just told myself the story that this was David Fincher failing before he like became like before he like started making before he had like I know how to make I can control a production better.
Yeah.
But I like when I watched the movie I was like, oh, that's not the case at all. Like this is a great director really like constructing these scenes. And the things that are failing about the movie are not him.
Yeah, I think some of the like the fisheye tracking shots, and it was like, these are good ideas. I don't think they come across effectively, and I think it was really just a matter of like, that they had to make a deadline, and they were shooting. It was a little over a year before it was a little before the film came out. They were shooting it, which I think an Alien movie needs a little longer to do all the stuff. And it is also like a sense of like the production company Brady Wine just wanted a little quality control. They just wanted something out that they knew would make money, which it did, but it wasn't something that really sticks in the memory. And it's something. It feels like third films in a lot of film series is where things go off the rails. So you're like Godfather Part 3, Superman,
3D.
Jaws 3D, Superman 3, Day of the Dead, which is one I really, really love. But there's just something that like, it's a mix of like, we want to do something different, but we're also like spinning our wheels kind of thing. So
We
it's
want to keep on the capitalization of Alien, so we have to release something, but that
do
doesn't mean
think
always good
Premises have a maximum number of minutes.
yeah.
And sometimes very early in part 3, you hit that maximum.
Yeah. So I think it is a piece of film history and its film production. It is completely fascinating to look at. And there are things, it is a film that is, the parts are better than the sum of the film, I would ultimately say.
There's parts of this film that like definitely shine and make up for a lot of it, but like it just, the quality of certain scenes versus the quantity of a lot of scenes, or the amalgamation of that. Yeah.
But I'll also say that I do appreciate that Alien does tend to try to do something different every time. It may not work. It may be like a total piece of crap like Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I hate those films. But they're trying something different. And in a world where they're IPs and you're just playing the absolute safest bets, I give the filmmakers a lot of credit for doing something risky, no matter how much they kind of came up short in the end.
I guess I feel like with Prometheus and Covenant, like you said, like they were trying to do something different. They don't feel like Alien movies in that's the best way to put them. They don't feel like they fit in this universe. They feel like generic Alien-esque like Alien-esque and sci-fi movies that are just they slap the Alien title on, but just because they're so profitable at this point in time.
Yeah. And I was like, do I care where the space jockey came from? The space jockey's cool. I don't really care. And it doesn't, I was just like, wow, this is a waste of my life.
I think it runs counter to the very premise of Alien, which is you can't know.
I will die on this hill. I think Alien is one of those film series that it's scary not to know where things come from. As much like John Carpenter's thing, it's scary if you don't know what happened to the Norwegians or where it comes from. The Predator, I think, would benefit more from a backstory than Alien does, which is, you can take it or leave it with Predator.
I mean, Predator's got gun. Like, there's just a story like all his weapons and where he's coming from and who he hangs out with on the weekend. There's like stuff that lends the Predator to more stories, whereas don't mess up the mystery of the alien.
Where Space Jockey come from? I don't know. Maybe he was going to get milk and never came back.
So, all right. Well, any other last thoughts or concluding thoughts? I appreciate everybody's insights about this film, which it certainly is. However you feel about Alien 3, it is an excellent film to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think some movies just stink, but this one doesn't just stink. Like,
Yeah.
you get to the end of it and you're more perplexed. You're like, why didn't I like that more?
I think when I was looking at my like letterbox, I think I had this at like 2 stars. Maybe I'll bump it up to 2.5 stars. All right. So, last words.
Watch Alien 3. It's overhated for no reason.
Yeah, well, definitely an
Yeah,
overhated
yeah.
movie. I agree with that, having gone back to it.
Yeah, it may be like it's like your next level studies of Alien after the first two, and certainly in hindsight, probably one of the better Alien films given what was to come.
Because
So,
I know there's like the iceberg of like, here's all the things you should know, here's all the things you kind of know, and here's all the stuff you don't know. And I feel like Alien 3 is again like kind of like middle level of
Yeah.
like, you should know this. I recommend it, but it's not as well known or as well liked as other entries.
it's the I was to say like the redheaded stepchild or the
Yeah.
outlier of the series for sure, and wasn't quite like. It was really before they like, we need to do all the things that people expect in an Alien film. We got to shoot something out of an airlock or
Yeah.
got to have this or that. So it was one that it's the oddball. And I think I wouldn't say it's good, but it's interesting.
Like they were trying to do a lot of stuff in this film, with as with other ones, but it just didn't quite cut it the way that they were hoping for.
And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's a fascinating failure, fascinating, but then, a lot of the people who were in this film ended up doing just fine. David Fincher, esteemed director, Sigourney Weaver, Charles S. Dutton, they were working afterwards. So it was one of these things that didn't kill anybody's career.
Yeah.
Surprisingly. So, well, thank you very much for being our guest on the show.
Thank you.
Been glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
Please make sure to like and subscribe to Giant Bombs, and we'll talk to you next time where we talk about another giant bomb.